until I take my dying breath. I will never let you go. I will never let you go.
Hi, everybody. This is David Smith from No Kill, Colorado. I'm joined today by Alan Rosenberg, the New Jersey Animal Observer, Aubrie Kavanaugh from No Kill Huntsville. This is No Kill in Motion. So today, we wanted to talk about free speech in animal sheltering. There's a lot of intimidation done sometimes by organizations of their volunteers and even staff. And the fact is, there's some protections for you out there, and a lot of people don't know this. You have the right to say things, especially when we're talking about community-funded shelters, tax-funded shelters. When it comes to any, and they don't have to be municipal shelters. If they're getting tax money in some way or shape or form, this still holds true. There's an act from 1983 that was passed, and actually was originally passed as part of the Ku Klux Klan Act from 1871, I think. But it actually holds true of you're allowed to speak out. You're allowed to speak out when you see something wrong, and your First Amendment rights need to be defended by the government in order to actually address those things. But free speech comes in a lot of different ways out there, and a lot of different examples. I'm sure that we all have some. Alan, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, this topic hit me close to home. I was banned not from one, but two animal shelters for speaking out about such things privately, not even publicly. And as an advocate, I am constantly being contacted by shelter volunteers in my state about problems they're having, and culminating up to being banned from shelters for speaking out. And it's really gotten worse in recent years. I'm seeing more and more shelters instituting employment agreements and non-disclosure agreements for volunteers that effectively gag them from speaking out, which, as you said, is completely illegal under Section 1983. And it's actually gotten to the point where some local advocates and myself in my state have thought about proposing legislation specific to animal shelters to prohibit this practice, because it's getting out of hand. And in my state, at least, with an inadequate inspection process, really the only thing we have in many cases is volunteers and employees blowing the whistle and letting us know what's happening.
I tell you, I actually forgot that I had a cease and desist when I was doing some advocacy down in Pueblo, Colorado, and Nathan Winograd and I got the same letter from a council member, Lori Winter, and I'm saying this out loud because he actually publicly answered that letter, and so his answer was my answer, so I know that I'm covered, right? But they try to intimidate you, and they try to do it, and it was sent by a lawyer telling me that I couldn't talk about her, period, in the story in any way, shape, or form, which was not true. He came out and said, well, no, here are the things I said. These are all true. They're simple facts. I'm allowed to actually talk about this anytime I want. So thanks. And, people need to understand that they do have a right. You do have to stay into the bounds of truth and what you can actually defend. But you shouldn't be afraid when you are seeing something horrible. You know what's happening. It's a systemic issue, and you can move forward and actually do something about it by speaking out. And people really need to understand that they have protections for that. Aubrie, I know that you've had something that's happened, I think, recently.
Yeah, we had a situation recently where some shelter volunteers in the county where I work, these are people that have been volunteering for a long time, and they started seeing some things that caused them concerns related to animals being destroyed, that were relating back to another conversation we had that were healthy and treatable animals, and the county claiming that didn't happen. And then other animals being taken to veterinary facilities and being destroyed before their property hold period under our state law. and the county also trying to claim that animals that were taken directly to veterinary facilities, that somehow that those didn't count in the shelter statistics. Like the county didn't have to account for them in some way. So they started doing record collection, and then they went to the county to express their concerns about what was going on. They were told, hey, nothing to see here. And then they, out of desperation, they went to the media. And after it got out in the media, first of all, they were fired as volunteers. And then they went to the media. And when they went to the media, they said, the only reason we would have been fired as volunteers is because we were speaking out. You can't say that you didn't need us as volunteers because you needed us all these years, and all of a sudden you didn't need us once we became vocal. So they went to the media, and after they went to the media, some of them were threatened with litigation. And I think that some of them just felt so overwhelmed by that, that they really just, they just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. There's one particular woman that did actually go and hire an attorney, good for her. And I'll be curious to see what happens moving forward. This thing with public officials, like the thing with the councilwoman in Pueblo, I'm not an attorney, but I am a paralegal who has published a book which exposed myself to potential lawsuit. So what I will tell people is this: when you're speaking out against a public official about a matter of public concern, you have every right to do that. And if they try to sue you, they have to show what is called actual malice to prevail in a lawsuit. And what actual malice really means is that you purposefully lied about them to make them look bad. Having said that, just because you can defend a lawsuit doesn't mean that you can prevent a lawsuit. So what I would tell people is, there are protections for you. And I think the thing in Nathan's toolkit, I think, Alan, I think it's called Section 1983 to the rescue, unless I'm mistaken. Section 1983 does protect you, but it doesn't make you impervious to potential legal problems. But I think you just have to weigh it for yourself. Is what you're seeing important enough that you will own your outrage? Because if you don't speak, you're kind of complicit in what's going on. So you need to decide if it's important enough for you to speak about, then is it important enough for you potentially to have a lot of blowback? And then how are you going to deal with that? And I'm not saying you have to go out and hire an attorney before you speak, but I'll be curious to see what happens in this county. I think that any county officials I think the threat of litigation, I think it's smoke. I think it's smoke and mirrors because they're trying to get people to cave because they're worried about it. But like when you got the C&D, cease and desist letter, like Nathan did, all you have to do is respond back and say, hey, the things that I said were true. You're a public official and I have every right to speak to these things. And ordinarily that will be the end of it. It's just,
we'll have to find out whether try to get that in the link. Obviously get 1983 to the rescue in the link with this video as well, so people can see it. You just need to know that there are protections out there. And actually, just so you know, in 2009, I think it was, Sheldon Eisenberg brought this forth in California, Ewan versus the County of Los Angeles, and won. So the shelter lost, the person won. So there is precedent showing that this is the way it's interpreted in US law today. It's not just the act, but it's been tested and it has worked. So people need to know that, you know, I guess it's if you say something, right? The cliche there that we need to do. All right, we're out of time unless if somebody has one last thought. You good? All right, this is Dave Smith from No Kill Colorado, and thank you, Alan Rosenberg and Aubrie Kavanaugh. This has been No Kill in Motion. We'll see you next time.